space, and he's found the back of the net.
Just a little off foot, thinking he's going to go far post. Not strong enough with his right hand.
Whips that one in. Far post, almost made him ends, and they have. He has the hat-trick. The second in his career. The third of the night. The hat-trick hero.
Talked about you're not going to be able to sustain that kind of pressure.
To the corner. Goes towards the near post. And you're the angle, and what a goal! What a goal!
Hello, everyone. Rev Brad here, and you're listening to Soccer Chaplain United's podcast, From the Touchline. Today, I have a special friend and guest with me, Coach Brian Shultz. Coach Brian is head boys and girls soccer coach at Valor Christian High School. And today, we're going to talk a little strategy, talk a little coaching philosophy, and spiritual formation. And we're going to have a little bit of fun here today. So, Brian, welcome to the pod.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for driving 1 mile over here to come sit in my office.
Oh, it was arduous, especially
with
the snow.
We are 6 feet apart. So.
We are, with masks on, or at least we got these puff things in front of the mics that will help us with our spitting. So, well, Brian, you and I have known each other for a long time. How long have we known each other for?
I don't know. We met on that men's retreat a long time ago, almost 20 years ago.
Was that 2009?
Oh, was it? Okay.
8?
So it wasn't as long as I thought.
7?
Feels like forever.
It does feel like forever. So I don't think we started going to that church, and I didn't speak in that men's retreat till later on.
I think it was probably 2007, 2008.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you remember from that? Do you remember what I talked on?
Yeah, pretty sure you were teaching on David, and it's really good stuff. And afterwards, you spotted me in the lobby wearing my club gear that was, I think, from Colorado Rush at the time.
Yeah, it was.
Which that already put up, walls.
Oh, because I had coached for Real, so yeah. I was like, who is this guy?
You came over and said, how'd the talk go? And I said, it's hard to go wrong with the Bible. And so you were fishing for a compliment, and that was the best I could give you.
I don't think I was fishing for a compliment. I just think I was looking for feedback. That's my nature. But thanks for the compliment, if that was one.
Yes. Knowing you were asking for feedback.
Oh, my gosh.
For sure.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, maybe I did need a little puff of pride or something. I didn't know anyone there, so I was kind of like, I didn't really know anyone there. But I think that's where the craziness started, right? Did we play disc golf that weekend?
We did.
And you're like, on hole 17, you're like, okay, for this hole, you got to throw while you're on top of someone's shoulders.
Yeah, we did a piggyback hole and a left-handed hole, and it was up in Estes Park, so we were going up and down the ridges and through the mountain.
Yeah,
it was beautiful.
Elk were bugling, and we don't do that anymore because now we're ultra competitive and we don't do any shenanigans.
No more fun with the game anymore.
I know, it's all
winner takes all.
The other day I was playing with a former player of yours, Grant Adams, and my disc.
He's still in town.
Yeah, my disc was partially. It was on the out of bounds line, and so I had to tell him the story. I had to tell him the story.
You are a rule follower.
I said I owe Coach Shultz at some point. I owe him a stroke somewhere in life because I didn't really know the rules.
And so what did you do? Did you take the stroke?
Oh, no, I was on the line, so I was still in bounds.
that was the whole thing that happened.
I know, but nowadays, knowing better, we better start talking soccer, not disc golf anyway. But Brian, we've known each other for a long time, good friends, and I'd love to hear. It's always fun for me to hear a little bit of your story, your background, where you grew up, how you got into soccer, because you and I grew up in a generation, at least where I grew up in Michigan, soccer was not big at all. American football was. And so all the time and attention was there, and basketball, and soccer didn't really blow up until, there wasn't even club soccer from what I can remember in my days growing up. But tell us a little bit of your story growing up, and how did you get into this role of coaching? We'll get there eventually, but tell us the beginning story.
Yeah, I grew up in West Virginia, and in the southernmost county, Mercer County, and there was not soccer back then when I was 5, and And when I was 6 years old, my dad's cousin Tommy came over to the house and said, "Hey, I'm starting a soccer team, and we're gonna join a league that's happening over in Bluefield. And so far, there's only like 3 teams in it. It's gonna be us and another team from Bluefield, and I don't remember where the third team was from. And so we basically just played each other, like 3 or 4 times each. And Tommy didn't know anything about soccer, and the Bluefield team was actually coached by a guy from Honduras or Guatemala, and I'm pretty sure they beat us like 12-0 every game. It was pretty disheartening. The other team was pretty even, but I fell in love with soccer. Actually began, playing in my yard all the time. Had a little Cocker Spaniel named JR, and he would actually come and take the ball off me and move it around the yard with his nose, and he was really hard to catch, and I would take it back from him, and then he'd chase me down, and we'd play for 20, 30 minutes until we were both just exhausted. And that's how I learned how to dribble and cut the ball back sharply. And so
keep away from JR.
And I've never been like a fancy player. I was just always a player that knew how to make sharp cuts and get the ball off my foot.
So where did you get thrown into the field first? Were you did you play all over?
Yeah, I was. I guess with the kids, from like 6 to 12, I was pretty decently skilled. So they always put me in the center mid and center forward, and just played there. Scored a lot of goals.
Wow. And so did you play in high school then?
No. So it was actually crazy. Because there was no club soccer, because soccer was so brand new in that part of West Virginia, I really hadn't developed any technique, and I actually was 12 years old and still kicked the ball with my toe when I was shooting and those kinds of things. It was pretty crazy what I had learned how to do. Could score off of corners with the toe and that kind of stuff. But I remember we moved to Richmond, Virginia, which was a hotbed of soccer when I was 12, and that was the first time I'd ever heard of like a travel team. And joined that travel team with Coach Tony Santos, who also ended up being the high school coach, and got to travel all over. And that's really where my game, for the first time, I was receiving quality instruction, quality coaching, and just learned so much. And so through 8th, 9th, 10th grade, that was a big time for me in my development as a player.
Wow. Did Richmond at the time have a pro team?
I don't think that they did. No.
I mean, today they've got the Richmond Kickers. I don't remember when
maybe
they started.
The Strikers. I'm trying to remember. I didn't have a lot to do at the time with the pro game or anything like that. So, but 40 minutes down the road was University of Virginia, and that's back when Bruce Arena was, winning all the championships, and it was always them in Santa Clara. It seemed like every year in the championships, and I got to grow up, going out to those games, and I got to see players like Agus and Ben and Harks, and just amazing players back in the day.
Wow, that's amazing. And I mean, you and I grew up in a generation when we didn't have television, internet. We couldn't watch football games from overseas. I mean, we were lucky to even be able to watch a World Cup games.
Yeah, rabbit ears and watching through the fuzz. I remember that.
Yeah.
Do
you what are some of your earliest high level soccer viewing moments? Was there a World Cup or some game or person that comes to mind at all?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was probably when I was in college, actually, because I had never gotten to see the pro game. Once in high school, I remember we went up to Baltimore and got to see Tattoo play in the pro indoor. So that was pretty cool to do that and experience that. And then in college, I was in school from 90 to 94. Okay. Actually, 96. It was the 6-year plan.
Oh, yeah.
my dad joked with me at the end of college graduation at the party. He's like, Brian, you've been in college for more than 1/4 of your life. It's like, thanks, Dad.
I was on the 5-year plan, so I get you.
Yeah.
I feel you there.
But yeah, that '94 World Cup. Oh my gosh, I remember thinking, like, these are the guys that I've watched, at UVA and other places, and we've got after the '90 World Cup, which was, I remember watching us lose, I think, to Czechoslovakia at the time, 6-1 or something, and I was like, man, this is gonna be so cool. And so me and a couple buddies, Omar Zermeño and Troy Dillo, got together, pulled our money, and said we are going to watch 2 of these games. We went up to RFK in DC and caught Mexico, Norway, and Holland, Saudi Arabia, and it was just the atmosphere, unbelievable. I cannot wait till 2026 because I want my kids, to experience that.
It. Yeah. Well, I remember growing up, I didn't watch much soccer either, but I got to Chicago to go to school I started in 1994, but it was just after the World Cup had happened. And I get into the city thinking, man, I just missed something really big, because being in Denver, we were miles from a game. Like I would have had to get on a plane to go somewhere, and TV coverage and all those things, even back in the 90s, wasn't what it is today. So I'm looking forward to the World Cup being here as well. So to get a game as well. So
have you seen the documentary on Soccer Town USA? I think it's on YouTube.
I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, really good.
I'll have to watch that.
Yeah.
So getting into college, which college did you go to? How'd you get in? Did you get a scholarship to play soccer? How did that work?
Yeah, my dream was always to go to UVA, but I wasn't good enough. And so I was just...
You mean the Bruce turned you down?
He didn't even know my name. Let's put it that way. He was getting the elite of the elite players, and that was not me. But I loved the game, was passionate, and ended up going to a small Christian college called King College in Bristol, Tennessee, right on the Virginia-Tennessee border. And Coach Joe Hakes allowed me to walk on, and walked on and went through training camp and somehow made the starting lineup by the first game, and ended up scoring, I think, 3 goals in the first 2 games. And
wow.
But they were all...
You're a ringer.
No, I mean, they were like tap-ins. It was like, the ball would, pinball off of 4 players and drop right to my foot in front of the goal.
Yeah.
So I wasn't doing anything special, but I got to play with some great players. King had a pretty good reputation back then.
Where did they play?
NAI.
NAI.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just still remember probably still the greatest player I've played with to this day. He was the captain of the Gambian national team, and his name was Louis Thorpe. And I got to be on the field with that guy day in and day out, and that was basically my role that season, was to support Louis in the midfield and play defense so he wouldn't have to, and wherever he was, just be close by so he would have an outlet. But that was my introduction to college soccer, and those were great memories, just riding the vans everywhere and going and playing games on Saturdays, and great times.
Wow. So looking back on your college career, what would you say is a highlight? Was there a particular game, a moment, a goal scored? What was the highlight from those college days?
Well, the low light was the game where we lost in the district final, I think to Christian Brothers out of Memphis, and gave them a great game. We lost 3-2, and all 3 goals had come off of me.
There's a story there.
Yeah.
You can't get away from telling the story.
I think I've tried to repress it, but I think one was shot into me, deflected, changed directions on the goalkeeper. Another one, I was standing in the wall and it glanced off of me and went in the goal. And I don't even remember the third one, but it was
3 own goals.
What a disaster!
And a 3-0 loss to Memphis Brothers.
3-2.
Christian Brothers.
3-2 double overtime loss. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's more painful.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Good memories. Just for me, it was more. It wasn't like a particular game. It was just the brothers coming together, the camaraderie. My coach, Joe Hakes, just did a great job of creating a family atmosphere. Decent coach. You know, I don't think he would even say he was the top coach in America or anything like that, but man, he loved his players really well, and allowed us a lot of freedom to go out and play. And even the training sessions, you know, that were built for players. We played the game a lot, and so even in the off season, maybe some of those memories are the better ones, because we all loved the game so much that, you know, the off season would hit and we would travel all over the southeastern U.S. and go to these indoor tournaments, and you know, for the weekend and play. We'd go play 6-a-side in the spring, you know, against much bigger colleges, and we were pretty successful.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. So after college, where did your playing days go after that?
Well, after playing for 4 years at King, I was the assistant coach for 2 years, and that's probably where I really got passionate about coaching. Got a job right after college in St. Louis teaching at Westminster Christian Academy, and started coaching high school soccer there. And that was probably you know, foundational for me as a young man too, because in this school, you know, I'm in my mid-20s, and I'm being mentored without even knowing I'm being mentored by these godly men around me that are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and you know, they just kind of took me under their arm and or under their wing, and really was just a period in my life where I grew as a young man, you know, and in my knowledge of Christ. Becky and I had already started our family in college, so we already had 2 kids. I just loved coaching the high school boys and teaching Spanish, and that's what I did for, I think, 5 years there. And,
wow.
Yeah.
And did you ever try, I don't know, taking that game anywhere else, like just in terms of playing? Because you know, sometimes when you're the player and you transition to the coach, it takes some time.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen overnight and automatically.
Oh, I was still playing all the time, men's leagues, things like that. And it's funny because one of my kids in Spanish class, she came to me and said, "Hey, Senor," she said, "You know, my dad's my uncle is the assistant coach for the St. Louis Ambush, and I've seen you play with the high school boys. I think you're pretty good. I think you should go try out." And I was like, "Okay." And she goes, "In fact, when do you play next?" And I told her, I think I had a game that night, and her uncle came out and watched me. This was back when the Ambush were making their playoff run, pretty deep.
So pause just a minute. The Ambush, were they the pro team? Like, oh wow,
yeah,
indoor, outdoor?
It was the pro indoor team, and at that time, those guys were making more money than the guys in the MLS. There were guys leaving the MLS. I remember Franklin McIntosh came over to our team, and somebody asked him, and he's like, "Because you can make more money here." And there were 14,000 people coming to regular season games there at the Kiel Center. And so I went out and played my men's league game and got an opportunity to go and just be basically practice squad because they had a lot of injuries and just needed numbers and decent players. You know, those guys were way better than me. But Daryl Duran, who was the manager and the player, he came up to me at the end of the season. He goes, "Shultz, I want you to try out for the team next year." And that's a whole nother story.
Wow.
I just told the girls soccer players this the other day because we were talking about mentality for a tryout. And so I show up to this tryout, and August 17th, I'd kind of run and got fit all summer, and basically they had made it an open tryout, and I didn't know that, and 250 people showed up. I mean, there were old guys and fat guys and young guys and all Americans and internationals, and it was absolutely amazing. And Duran grabs a big trash can and just puts it in the middle of the field. We can't even get everybody into the indoor field because of,
because of how many people?
How many people were there. And basically he just took like 50 at a time and blew a whistle, and we'd run from one end of the arena to the other, and until guys just started peeling off or puking or leaving. And I mean, guys on the outside of the glass watching, they were just leaving.
They were leaving.
Droves,
I'm not going.
Yeah. By the end of the day, there were 80 of us left. And, the next day it was 50. The next day it was like 20. And I was still alive. And it was old school. They didn't like bring you in and have a conversation and try to, build your self-esteem up. It was a list on the glass of who was still alive.
Oh, wow. So come in, check the list, see if your name's on it.
Yep.
Suit up.
And it got all the way down to 4 guys going for, 2 spots. And I just remember fear kind of gripping my heart. And this is what I was advising the players the other day. I was like, so I started trying to play in a way where I just wouldn't make a mistake. And really what that does is you don't play free anymore. You're not out there to make an impact anymore.
Right.
And so that's what I was talking to the girls about, in their tryouts in their, upcoming season. Are they going to be daring, or are they going to just try to not make mistakes? Because that was the end of me. The 2 guys that played free made the team, and the other 2 of us didn't. So, I think that was a great learning lesson for me.
Wow. To come down to the Final Four and have that shot.
Yeah.
I mean, what were we talking here? Like, are these contracts big enough you could have left your job? And I mean,
No.
Soccer's grown over the years.
No, the way it worked was there's a few guys that make all the money that
Yeah.
were the stars. I mean, the Joe Reinigers and, who was the goalkeeper at the time? Can't remember his name, but Daryl Duran himself, and they made a lot of money on camps during the summers. But then the bulk of the team, were like, guys would get their apartment paid for or something.
Or free beer after a game or something.
Yeah, totally. Or during the game.
I recently read an article, was it on The Athletic? Something about these guys who had a dream of doing an indoor soccer miniseries on TV. I got to shoot you the article because it's so funny. I wonder if it would bring back any memories. But just some of the things that they were trying to entice people into, I wonder if any of that was part of your experience as well.
Well, they invited me to go through the season again with them,
Practice squad.
as a practice squad, and
Yeah.
I did it, and I grew tremendously as a player. But I remember some of those moments and experiences with the team, even during the preseason. I went to, I think we were playing the Milwaukee Wave, and I'm still trying to make the team, and we go into the locker room for half, and I'm expecting for Daryl to get angry with the team because I think we were down a few points, and all of a sudden, like, the star of the team, I'm not going to use his name, but the star of the team is just like walking on a treadmill during halftime, and unrolls his sleeves and pulls out a cigarette and lights up a cigarette. I'm like, man, I'm trying to make the team, and this guy is...
Yeah, he's just laying back.
He's already made the team. He's one of the best players in indoor soccer, probably one of the best players in the world at the time, and he's smoking a cigarette, and after that he hops off and puts his feet up, on another chair.
No big deal.
And cracks a beer and chugs a beer at halftime. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm just trying to make this team, dude.
It was a different generation back then.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah.
And especially on the professional side, you wouldn't see that today for sure.
And that was the beautiful thing with all the indoor places all over St. Louis, was like there was such a community and camaraderie, and all the guys all those indoor places would have a bar, and the guys would just go grab a drink together afterwards.
Sure.
Hang out.
Yeah. Well, they call St. Louis Soccer City, don't they?
Yeah.
And they're getting their pro franchise here pretty soon. So, well, Brian, tell us a little bit more about the coaching now. So you kind of pick it up at King College. You're an assistant for a couple of years. You start coaching at Westminster Christian Academy. At what point in your timeline up to this point, was there a moment when you realized I was made to do this? This is who I am, Was there ever a moment, and maybe there wasn't, but was there a moment where you're like, God made me to be a coach?
Well, I mean, I think that moment had already happened for me because I was a pre-law major in college and just needed a break after having started my family and going straight into coaching high school and teaching high school. And I fell so in love with it, I was like, I don't even want to go to law school anymore. So, and that 5 years at Westminster is when I really started getting into more of the philosophy of coaching and some of the methods, and fell in love with Dutch soccer and started reading all the books and just couldn't get enough, and kind of modeled a lot of my coaching after that. And then really we moved to Colorado in 2002, and I got on right away with the Colorado Rush, and that was absolutely foundational, instrumental to me, becoming a more professional coach.
Tell us about the transition, because maybe it's an assumption, but St. Louis, hotbed of soccer.
Yeah.
You come to Colorado. What's Colorado like? Is it a more sparse landscape for soccer at the time, or was it just as vibrant in terms of quality of athlete? Like, describe for us a little bit of the difference between St. Louis and coming to Colorado.
Yeah, I didn't notice a whole lot of difference. I feel like soccer binds people, and wherever they are, and I had that in St. Louis and got it instantly in Denver. In fact, the day that I moved here, I was looking for jobs and found a place to play, and that's how I met the guys over at the Rush, and we were playing at the old Denver Sports Center, which I think just went away this year. Was bought out by a church, and we played that night, and then afterwards the guys were like, hey, who are you, where are you from? And that's the cool thing about soccer, is you can go anywhere, and if you can play the game, you're going to have a community around you. And so I got my foot in the door over at the Rush and started coaching there.
So you start coaching club there. And where were you working at the time? Did you transfer into a different school? Were you teaching?
Yeah, I ended up getting a job at Eagle Crest High School.
Were you coaching soccer there too?
Did some JV soccer and then helped out with the varsity, and then became the varsity coach for 1 year. That was kind of over a 5-year period, 2002 to 2007. But my main gig that whole time was coaching boys, high school boys, U16 to U18 over at the Rush. And,
okay.
Tim Shultz, Eric Boucher, Andrew Coomer, Paul Bravo, actually.
Oh, wow.
From the Rapids, who all those guys were over there. Wes Hart, Mike Pacercio, who are now down in Alabama coaching women's soccer, and it was a beautiful time to be part of the club, and I learned so much from those guys. And the Rush way, that was actually when it was just the Colorado Rush, right before it launched and went into, I think it's in over 30 states and 30 countries now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you got to be a part of that, kind of on the ground floor, special as it was launching.
Yeah.
Awesome. So from Eagle Crest, tell us what happened after Eagle Crest.
Yeah, was feeling called, even though I enjoyed, teaching and coaching there, I was feeling called back into faith-based coaching. And at the exact same time, Valor Christian High School was being built and opened, and I got a teaching job, and coaching was still over at the Colorado Rush at the time. I actually didn't coach any soccer here the first 2 years that I was here. And
did they have soccer?
They did, but they were just starting the program. I think the first year they had like 10 guys.
Wow.
And it was a long, slow build. Because out of those 10 guys, I think only 5 had even played before. So it was a crazy time. And so I had a really good gig and a good team over at the Rush at the time. So I just kept doing that and teaching here. And then in the third year, the school was open. They kind of approached me. Some of the other coaches had moved on to other things and asked me if I'd be willing to coach. And I just remembered what an incredible time I had back at Westminster teaching and coaching from a faith perspective, where the end game wasn't soccer itself, but that was just a platform to, talk about your faith and to, lead young men in their faith.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's, I jumped at the chance and did that.
So what year was that you started then? Was that 2009?
It would have been 2009, yeah.
Wow.
First season.
And we're going on 2021, so, and that's, 12 years, 13 years here. Wow, It's amazing. Well, Brian, you've been now coach at Westminster and at Valor. You talked about faith-based coaching here. Tell us a little bit more about your own journey of faith. Did you grow up as a Christian? Did you grow up knowing Jesus? Like, what was that like?
Yeah. I absolutely came to faith at a young age. I say absolutely because it was, I just still remember to this day this moment. My parents were new Christians. They had been invited to Maranatha Baptist Church there in Princeton, West Virginia, and Pastor Wallace Smith shared the gospel with my parents, and they accepted Christ as their Savior, and it changed the way our family operated. We began to go to church, and I remember my mom sharing the gospel with me, and I understood even at 5 years old that, hey, I'm marred by sin. I need a Savior. Jesus lived the perfect life as the Son of God and as God Himself, and provided the sacrifice we needed on the cross. And I remember praying to Jesus to come into my life and save me. And at that point, even as a young kid, I was like, I wanted everybody to know Jesus. So I was telling all my friends, and my family and I probably drifted a little bit in the middle school years and high school years. And for me, that led to probably some really poor choices the first couple of years of college. And
why do you think the drift? I mean, can you pinpoint anything?
I think there were hard times in our family. There were some economic things. We had a couple moves in there from West Virginia to Richmond, Virginia, back to Wytheville, Virginia. And so our connection to the church wasn't as strong. Anytime you move, you just have to rebuild everything, right?
Yeah,
your friendships and everything. And, I think there were some difficult things inside my family too. Just basic dysfunction that, every family has it. And, my mom was always a stalwart of prayer and faith, and my dad was always working incredibly hard to provide for the family. And, we just, in those high school years, just got away from it.
So, Brian, at what point did your faith start to influence your football or your life in a broader sense? Like, you talked about some tough years at college, but was it during college that there was a little bit of a shift, or what kind of for you made the shift where all of a sudden maybe coming back to faith, or realizing your faith in a different way, started living life differently?
Yeah, I think, it was a journey, right? Freshman year of college, just really got into partying, and had to do it kind of behind closed doors, off campus, because it was actually a Christian school, and they didn't tolerate that. And I just kind of fell into the trap, when Satan shows you a lifestyle, he doesn't show you the negative consequences. He shows you the shiny part. And I was seeing all the fun and the shiny part, and just I remember having this conscientious conversation with God, saying, all right, God, you stay over there in the corner for 4 years while I go and have my fun, and then I'll go back to serving you. And, the God of the universe, I put him in the corner.
Yeah,
And, just as the pain began to come, the choices that I was making, the consequences of the party lifestyle, just all of it, began to take place. And it was a hard road for 2 years. And actually, the woman I'm married to today, she actually helped pull me out of that. She was a woman of strong faith, and I fell in love with her more so than I did with the party life, and I think that was a gift from God, and that was really the transition, back to faith toward me about my junior year. So, and then from then, it was really just about trying to learn more about faith and about God and about church life, and that was an amazing time of growth for me in those last 3 years of the 6 years of college.
So how has that faith today influence your coaching, the way you take on the camaraderie of the team, the community of the programs that you oversee today?
Yeah. Well, I have a story, and everybody has a story, so you can minister in different ways. I feel like some people have the story of, man, I found Christ and I've been faithful and all of my life, and here are my spiritual disciplines and how I live, and I think that resonates with a certain group and kid. And then there's the guys with stories like mine where, hey, they went down a road and a path and it wasn't good, and they learned from it, and now I get to use those opportunities to minister to young men as they make decisions, And so I've kind of had both of those stories. I've had the more mature Christian story, post-college, and get to share that with my boys and girls. And I've also got when they screw up, I can identify.
You can identify.
Yeah.
Sure. It probably lends you to have a little bit of grace for when they do screw up.
I've been given a lot of grace, so I better extend it.
Yeah, good model for that. Well, Brian, like you talked about, sort of in those early years, like reading every book about Dutch soccer, and tell us a little bit more about what has influenced your coaching philosophy from a soccer standpoint. How has that grown and morphed, and like, do you idolize anyone out there today? Do you like model yourself after anyone's game? What does that look like?
Yeah, the early years, it was the books and studying and trying it out on my own, and then also taking the stuff we were doing, at the pro indoor level, and building that into my high school practices, and just loving the game. That morphed into, when we moved to Colorado, it was probably the influences that I was experiencing over at Colorado Rush, as we
like the
talked.
Rush Way was
the Rush
pretty
Way,
influential.
and I mean that's when it was all being formed and put into books and things like that. And so I owe a huge debt of gratitude to those guys, because I learned a lot with them. And then really since then, so the last 10 to 12 years for me, it's been the National Convention. It's been about reading books like the Messiah Method, more coaching philosophy. Here at Valor, we have a pretty robust program with the Valor Coaches Associations, where we get a lot of professional development from other coaches and speakers and authors all the time. And for me, probably the last 5 years, it's been the pro game. I try to watch 3 to 5 games a week, usually late at night, so I don't interrupt family time, and just try to glean from what they're doing. Obviously, I'm a huge Guardiola fan. So people ask me if I'm a Man City fan, and well, I am while he's there. I was also a Bayern fan while he was there, and I still love how Bayern play. And Barca before that. I think I'm a fan of just great soccer, and that's why how can you like Man City and Liverpool? Well, Liverpool's playing great soccer, so I love, as a coach, just watching them and trying to, I'll go back in and find videos of Klopp's training and, or Guardiola stuff. And
so stop there for a minute. Guardiola, tell us a little bit, like, what are some of the characteristic things, maybe for someone who doesn't understand or appreciate the game as well as you do? What are some key characteristics that you say, hey, when you watch a Man City game, when you watch one of these teams coached by Pep, this is what you look for, because this is how you know that they're playing Pep's style. They're playing his. Well,
the first thing I tried to pick up on was I had always seen soccer where it was so cautious coming out of the back that you get under pressure. It was just, send it forward. The goalkeeper would always send it forward, and Pep brought that span.
That's how I played as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, well, even here in the States, at the highest levels, 10 years ago, it was, they didn't mess around with it in the back, and when the ball was dropped to a keeper, more often than not, it was sent over the midline, than it was built out of the back. And so I think that's probably the key thing that I noticed right away when I started watching his coaching styles and methods and his teams, and so I've tried to bring that into the high school game. And
how long have you been building out of the back, so to speak, here at Valor?
Yeah, probably 5 or 6 years now.
Okay.
And
was that a tough transition to go from maybe a former coaching way?
Yeah, the keepers weren't ready for it. I
Sure.
can tell you that. So we actually had a season on the boys' side where we turned a field player into a keeper so that we could do it. And we were like, we're putting a stake in the ground, and we're gonna figure out how to do this. And
You have to
build
have
out-
good feet
build out under
to build
pressure.
out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we've to try and produce what they're doing at a pro level with pro players and pro touch and pro technical ability is impossible at the high school level. But we've dumbed it down for our guys and try to make it a manageable thing. And we do have a really strong style when we play against other teams, and they've adjusted to that. They send more players forward to try and get us to send it long and to not build out. Or some teams actually will just drop off and let us have it back there because we got so proficient at it.
Yeah. So what do you find the challenge in terms of coaching? You mentioned some of them, but what's the challenge of coaching that style at the high school level? Where else do you kind of encounter, the rock in the hard place, so to speak?
Well, the players have got to know in training that they can make mistakes. You can't yell at them for turning the ball over if you're demanding that they build from the back. And so that's one of the key.
Is there a
moments.
balance to that as a coach? Because sometimes a mistake can be pretty costly to the team. Is there?
Well, and it can be back there, and so that's why I'm saying in training. And obviously, you have to have plenty of time to work on this before you ever get to your first game. But we've defined, the build out into, or the possession of the ball into 4 phases. We have like phase 1 coming out of the back with the back spread, and you're in a really dangerous position. And how do the 6, 8, and 10 help those backs and the keeper come out with the ball? And then after we get comfortable and can move the ball, and you get the backs a little higher up the field, now we enter phase 2, and we're trying to really combine with the 7s, 9s, and 11s and play players through with when there's a ton of space still behind the defense, 50 yards. And then phase 3 is when we're beginning to dominate possession, dictate play. We go back when we need to. We go forward when we can. There's less space behind that back line, and so now it's about possession until we find the opportunity to slot a ball instead of, over the top. And then phase 4 is that final piece where we've got a team pinned in with our possession, and what risks are we going to take, and how do we mitigate those risks in trying to get into the final opportunity.
Wow. So you break it down for them, and then that gives, I imagine, some palatable ways to even coach and train and teach that for the guys.
Yeah, and we demand it from our JV team, and on the girls' side we have 3 teams, and so hopefully that they're tracking that all the way up through their development, and so when they get to me, it's expected and known and already rehearsed and practiced, and so we get to refine it more than teach it. But with high school, the challenge of the game is it's not like club where all these kids are on a U11 team together and then they learn their lessons and they move up and maybe 1 or 2 players drop off and 1 or 2 players are added. And so U11 through U18 they can possess and get better and perfect these things. But at the high school level, you've got every year, 5 to 10 seniors rolling off the top, 10 to 15 players coming in as freshmen. You got kids moving from the JV to varsity, so you have to almost rebuild this every year, and so that's why we use our summer and our preseason. We work hard at that phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, throughout our preseason.
Yeah, I imagine that's been a challenge just even being a high school coach, is the amount of just the regular turnover is just something you've got to get accustomed to and get ready for. You don't have the chance to hold on to people so long, do you?
It is a challenge, and I think high school coaches, having coached at club and high school, each one of them has their own challenges, and I think that's one of the things that high school coaches should be proud of, and it is a difficult thing for those that can do it well.
Well, any other key characteristics that you pull out of Pep's coaching style or his way of doing the game that you might highlight for your own Valor programs here, without giving the total scouting report to all your opponents? Not that I doubt a bunch of high school coaches are going to be listening to the podcast, but who knows?
Well, I mean, how do you take Pep's career and put it into a podcast? You can't. I mean, I think one of the other keys that's they value possession so much that it translates even into their defense. If you watch them on a throw-in, on an opponent's throw-in, they will have almost all 10 field players within about 30 yards of the ball. They will take that risk because they want the ball back there. They want to win their throw-ins. They hardly ever lose one. And they've developed ways to do that, to cycle the midfield runs. You'll notice this year as more and more teams have copied them and try to come in and press a throw-in. They'll have a longer throw-in that it lands almost to the middle of the field to the one guy that everybody forgot about. But that's something that we've translated here at Valor, where we try to we want to win all of our throw-ins and all of theirs. And a win for us on offense is probably getting 3 passes, because normally by the 3rd pass you can break pressure. And so we pride ourselves on that, or at least try.
That's great. That's great. Well, Coach, now for just a little bit of fun. You follow Jesus, and so I imagine, and I've kind of prepped you a little bit with this, but you know that Jesus called 12 guys to follow him closely. These guys lived, they ate together, they slept, they breathed together for a number of intense years with Jesus. And so what I want to do in this little exercise is take these disciples of Jesus, and I've given you a few descriptions, and just kind of remind you about them. And I want to put them into a formation. Now, we haven't talked too much yet about your formation, your preferred formation, but what is your preferred formation? Maybe it's situational, maybe it's circumstantial, but like if you had your druthers, what formation would you want to play with?
Definitely a 4-3-3. I mean, it lends itself to the possession, attacking style soccer. It can be easily converted into a 4-5-1 on defense. You can use those 7s and 11s in different ways. You can keep them wider in defense to keep outside backs from going forward. You can pinch them in to give you an extra center midfield presence. You can take that middle triangle and invert the triangle and get the single 6 and the double 10, or you can go double 6 with a single attacking. So whoever your opponent is, I just feel like it's such an adaptable system.
Okay.
So
okay,
yeah,
all
4-3-3, right. Man, all the way.
So we're gonna put these guys into a 4-3-3 system, or you're going to. And
what about Jesus?
Well, see, Jesus isn't on the field. I know everybody wants Jesus on the field because they'd win. So Jesus isn't on the field, and I've told you we need to leave Judas off because he was a traitor. So now we're down to 11. Yeah. We're down to 11. So we're going to put these 11 apostles, these 11 disciples,
oh my goodness,
into the formation. So you can run through the numbers. Let's do this. So go ahead and start. Who do you have in goal?
Wait a minute. I got to hear your formation before we go any further.
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. So I'm a chaplain. I'm not a coach, right? So my formation would be a 4-3-3 as well.
Okay.
Is that fair? Or sometimes I favor a 4-4-2 with a diamond midfield.
That's what I was going to say. I figured you would be more traditional. Maybe even have it like a sweeper back there behind the three fullbacks.
No, I'm not that old school. All right. So let's go. What we'll do here is I'll read the disciple, a little description of them, and then you're going to put them in your lineup, and then I'll put them in mine. How's that sound?
Yeah,
okay.
That's great.
Let's start with maybe the most well-known guy, Simon Peter. Okay. So Jesus said he's going to build his foundation of the church with Simon's faith and conviction. Simon's the guy who lost out on a foot race to the tomb with John the Beloved. He's a fisherman, bit of a tough guy. He really wanted to fight everyone when he was pushed into a corner. So where do you have Simon Peter?
I don't know. He cut off the dude's ear in the garden. So he's fierce, man. Like, he reminds me of Luis Suarez. So he's got to be my 9.
He's going to be your 9?
He's got a little nasty to him.
Geez.
And you don't always have to be the fastest guy in the 9. That's probably more important out on the wings, in 7-11.
Okay. For me, I've got Simon Peter. I put Simon Peter in the 6 because he's gritty. He's a fighter. He's my central defensive midfielder who's going to fight in front of the front 4 or the back 4 and just kind of help him out. So I've got Simon Peter at the 6.
You'll probably have him till the first half, maybe, because of the red cards.
Gets a yellow or red card. All right. So moving on, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. So Andrew actually introduced Simon to Jesus. He introduced some other people to Jesus. Like one was a little boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish. The Greek worshipers, he introduced them to Philip. And there's other stories. Also, he partnered up with Paul after the resurrection. So where do you have Andrew?
Well, I think he's pretty versatile. You listed off all those things that he does. I think I see him as a connector and a disruptor out there on the field.
Okay.
So I've got him in the 8. He's probably the link, in the midfield between the 6 and the 10.
Okay. Yeah. I had him as a 10, just being that distributor, passing the ball off, getting it up.
All right, not
to the forwards, to the wingers. Yeah, okay, all right. So moving on, James, son of Zebedee. Okay, this guy's a fisherman. Dad had the family business. His mom, Salome, asked for her sons to be given powers of position in Jesus' kingdom. Yeah. He's known as James the Greater. I don't know why, but he's known as James the Greater. Where do you have James?
Well, he's greater because he's tall, so he's going to be my center back. And he and his brother, John, they're the sons of Zebedee or the sons of Thunder, I think they're known. You got to have those type of guys in the back line. So those are my 2 center backs.
Okay. So you called out John there as well. Okay. So I took James because of his size. I took him as my goalkeeper, actually, because I was like, I want a tall goalkeeper. Yeah. A fisherman. He works with his hands, so he's probably skilled with like just being able to catch things. Yeah. No pun intended there, being a fisherman, but okay. And then John, son of Zebedee. So brother to James. He's quick. He's fast. We know he beat Peter out in a race to the tomb, present at Jesus' death on the cross. So I have him as my 9. That's where I have James.
All right. Well, and I like that speed for the center back position.
Okay.
So John and James together, they know each other inside out.
They're brothers. All right. I'll give you that.
Worked on a boat together. They can command. The team from the back.
That's actually a good call. Okay. And next we got Philip from Bethsaida. He had a Greek name. He was tested by Jesus. He seems tight with Andrew. He makes some connections with some Greek worshipers. Close to the end, Philip asked Jesus to simply show him the way to the Father. So who do you got? Where do you have Philip?
I got him out on the 7. He's a winger, and he's going to find his way to the goal.
Okay.
For me, so I think
so you have him as a 7.
I think he is
serving a ball in every once in a while and getting upfield.
I think he's out there to show the way.
Oh, okay. Well, because he asked for the way, because he's tight with Andrew, I've got him more in the middle because I think the connection between Simon Peter and Andrew. Andrew's my 10.
Yeah.
I have him actually in the 8 position. I've got Philip in the 8 position.
Okay. Well.
Okay. All right. Okay. Next up is Nathaniel. Nathaniel, also known as Bartholomew in some places, found by Philip. he originally wondered if there's anything good that could come from Jesus' hometown because it was so insignificant, Nazareth was. Jesus remarked of Nazareth he was a true Israelite in whom there's nothing false. So I think this is maybe a nod to Nathaniel maybe knowing his stuff. But where do you have Nathaniel?
Well, just under that description that you gave me, I put him in the 6. I think he's dependable. I mean, if did you say Jesus said? Oh yeah, Jesus remarked that he's a true Israelite.
Yeah.
And if he's saying that, then he's your box to box, player. He knows how to run the whole show.
Folks, here's where you can see the difference between a chaplain and a coach. Oh, that's good. That's good. So you got Nathaniel in the 6. I had him in the 7. So
okay,
yeah. All right, Matthew. Originally a tax collector, but hated by his fellow countrymen. Interestingly enough, he wasn't in charge of the treasury for Jesus and his crew. But he was known for hanging around a group of pretty seedy people. He's the author of one of the Gospels, wrote it in Greek, so we know he's educated. Where do you have Matthew?
Without a doubt, he's my goalkeeper. The guy, the guy is unfazed. I mean, people hated him, and he didn't care.
So you're going for like the goalie psycho mentality.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I mean, it's all about mentality. You can't hold this guy back. He's going to find a way to get it done.
Okay.
And keepers have got to be, they got to be ready to do that. And
I figured Matthew probably lived his life on the run, and he was probably maybe not on the tallest of sides, so I put him in an 11 spot.
All right.
So I figured he was quick, or he had to be quick, right? Because he was so hated.
Yeah.
All right. Next is Thomas. Thomas, big-time doubter. He was always saying that he would believe it when he saw it. He wanted to know the way Jesus was going. Seems like he always needed to know the plan and get it sorted out. So where do you have Thomas?
Well, see, that's the difference here is in a pro 4-3-3, you're going to have incredibly high-quality players in the 7-11, and sometimes at the high school level, that's where you can actually, put a player that's more dependent to get the ball. And so with his doubting, that's about the only story we really have on him in the Gospels. So I just felt like I didn't want him in a central role, so I kind of got him out there.
You didn't want him screwing up.
Yeah, but he's probably not going to do a whole lot for us.
So what position do you have him in?
Yeah, I've got him in the 11 out on the left winger. So
you don't think highly of your left wings, do you?
On my team, I do. I've got great players out there.
But throw Thomas the doubter out there.
I had to hide him in this formation.
Man.
So
see,
you're not going to hide him in the back line.
Here we go. I don't have many places left, but I have him as a 2. So I have him as my right wing back.
Mercy.
That I might get slaughtered.
Yeah.
Unless we're playing your left wing back.
Let's see what Raheem Sterling does.
We'll
to
do
that
okay.
guy.
Oh my God. Folks, this is where all parallels eventually break down for sure. And I am anyway, when we get to heaven, I guess we'll see, right? We'll see how they line up for true. All right, Simon the Zealot. This guy's religiously zealous, a member of the political party violently opposed to Roman rule in the day. Many different traditions have different stories around his work and death. Where did you put Simon the Zealot?
He's a zealot. He's unpredictable. He's got flair. He's gonna be the guy that's got to have the freedom to roam. And so I put him in the 10.
Okay.
And kind of like how they over at City allowed De Bruyne to move all over the field and have that freedom to create. That's where I've got Simon the Zealot.
Okay. I had him as a 5, so I have him as a center back.
Okay.
I just want his passion and his zeal. I want kind of that
could work.
Creating a strong spine up the field. All right. So next we got James, son of Alphaeus. He's known as James the Younger or James the Lesser. It was his mom, Mary, who was present when Jesus died on the cross. Tradition holds that he preached the gospel and was martyred in Egypt. So where do you have James?
Well, he grew up with Jesus, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to say he's going to be at right back, critical position. He's going to, he's got to be able to defend the faith. He's got to be able to attack in the faith, and he's seen it all from Jesus. So I feel like those outside backs, especially in my 4-3-3, they've got to be very, versatile players.
Okay. I had him as my left back, so
Not too far.
Yeah, not too far off. Man, listening to you, maybe we should have consorted first to kind of figure some of these guys out. But this is fun. Okay, last guy, Thaddeus. He's also known as Jude. We don't know much about him. There's some debate about whether he authored the New Testament book of Jude, whether he was a half-brother for Jesus. Tradition says that he and Bartholomew brought Christianity to the area of Armenia. So where do you have Thaddeus in your lineup?
Yeah, with that idea of bringing Christianity to Armenia, I mean, he had to travel. So, and like I said, my outside backs love to attack and move up the pitch. And
Okay.
They do it very strategically.
All right.
So I've got him at left back.
All right. I had Thaddeus at center back on the right side, so maybe he's there supporting my big doubting right back. I don't know. Oh, well, a fun little exercise, just kind of designed and determined. So Brian, when you trot out Valor for this next season, do you guys play in a 4-3-3? What's your typical formation you guys play with?
It's going to depend on the personnel.
Okay.
Last year, we definitely, with the girls, we're going to play in a 4-3-3 and then lost the season to COVID. It's disrupted a lot of stuff, but it was going to be a very defensive 4-3-3 for us last year, probably more like a 4-5-1 with the middle three in a triangle and shifting back and forth defensively to try and lock balls in on the sideline. But for this year, I think we're going to be much more in a traditional attacking 4-3-3. We got a lot of speed, a lot of high-quality players on both the boys and the girls, and so I'm going to ask them to defend in a high press, and there'll be times for a middle block or low block, but we want the ball. With this kind of a team, we need to have the ball. So
Sure. Now, are there a tremendous amount of differences between the boys' side and the girls' side when it comes to soccer here in Colorado? Or what are some of the key differences that maybe make you get away from your own personal coaching philosophy or where you want to kind of lead the program? Is it based on opponents you've got in the league or just how difficult it is to get through a season? What are some of those factors for you?
Well, the league's always important. I mean, if you're going to go anywhere in the playoffs, you got to come out of your league with a good record and a good seeding. So those games are super important, and I feel like we're really evenly matched in a lot of our games. Last year we had some great games against quality opponents and beat them, and then we, in our league at least, we lost a game to a team that was a 53rd ranked team in the state last year, and so that's how competitive it is, on any given night, and that's the beauty of soccer.
Yeah.
Is trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Game by game, night by night.
Yeah. That's some of the fun spots and places for a coach, I imagine. So, well, Brian, thanks for being on the podcast today. It's been a real pleasure. I don't know how well, at least I did with this placement. It'd be interesting to maybe find out someday, like where guys might have played if they knew about the game of soccer. But yeah, Brian, could I ask you to kind of close us with a prayer as we walk away from the podcast today?
Absolutely. Father, in this Christmas season, here in 2020, it's been a challenging year, and God, this year has been from your hand. You have worked in it. You've drawn people to yourself through it. And Lord, we give you praise, and we also remember that Jesus came because we need a Savior. And so, God, I pray that as we celebrate with family and with friends, and as we continue through the end of this pandemic, Lord, I just pray that you would walk with us, that you would guide us, that we would step into 2021 with full trust for you, but Lord, that we would have eyes for the things that you see, for the things that you care about. And God, I just thank you for Soccer Chaplains United, and pray your blessing upon them financially and in ministry, Lord, as they go about the important work of supporting athletes and teams and coaches all across the globe. Pray all of this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Well, hey, everyone. This is Rev Brad and
Brian Shultz.
coming to you from the Touchline.